Good. Hey, everybody. I am Scott Schmaltz, and I am joining you from sunny Chicago. It's still cold as hell, but it's actually sunny today, so we're going to take what we could get. Uh, so I'll go ahead and jump in and do a quick presentation on different aspects of the market research process and careers in market research. As we go through this, feel free to jump in with any questions or anything you'd like to ask me. But before we jump in, I'll introduce myself. Again, my name is Scott Schmaltz. Most recently, I was Director of Insights and Strategies at Mark Research, but I'm currently actually in between roles, so I just figured I'd throw my most recent title in there. But as mentioned, I'm a proud 2016 graduate of the UGA MMR program. So Marcus got to deal with me in class back in 2015 to 2016, and I'm sure he's got great stories. But after graduating from UGA, I've worked in both client and supplier side roles. Again, most recently for Mark, but I've also worked at Bellamy and Ipsos on the supplier side, as well as Weber Grills on the client side. And I've worked across different industries from durables at Weber to medical device to food and beverage to tobacco and nicotine. So quite a wide range of experience as well. And then before going to UGA, I got a degree in psychology and a degree in marketing from the University of Northern Colorado. So now that the intros are out of the way, we'll jump into just like a basic definition of what marketing research is. Fundamentally, it just consists of systematically gathering data about people or companies and then analyzing it to better understand what that group of people needs. And typically, kind of the end result of the market research project is going to be a PowerPoint presentation, usually that gets presented to whoever commissioned the research, whether that's internal insights folks or brand managers, market managers. I've also presented all the way up to C-suite level executives. So that's kind of a basic understanding of what market research is at kind of a very high level. And a couple of examples of marketing research in action. One not so good example and one very good example of market research execution. So the less awesome example is the New Coke. I don't know if any of y'all have heard about that New Coke debacle from back in the day, but basically blind taste tests between Coca-Cola and Pepsi indicated that folks preferred that sweeter taste of Pepsi. So Coca-Cola decided to reformulate their product to make it a sweeter product more similar to Pepsi. But what they didn't take into account is all of the brand loyalty folks had and all the nostalgia factor. So people were very upset about the new formulation change. And they actually brought back the old formula after, I think, something like 2.5 months. So massive failure and a lack of further market research and just using one data point for this one. And then a example of a good research study or a good outcome is this box soup in-home use test. And actually, one of my colleagues has done this study before where folks were having a hard time figuring out how to use this product when they did the new kind of packaging like you can see here on the screen. And basically they did in-home use tests to see where the issues were, and people were just putting it right in the microwave in the container, causing fun little soup explosions in the microwave, or poking a hole in the box, things like that, and just not using it properly. So basically with the in-home use test, they were able to put clear instructions on the packaging and eliminate some of those poor use cases. So those are some examples of market research and what can be done in the industry, from super huge fun stuff like Coca-Cola to kind of little everyday usage like the soup container. So then jumping into the methodologies, typically we work with qualitative and quantitative research. At a high level, qualitative research is very much unstructured. It's a little bit more exploratory in nature, typically small sample sizes, anywhere from 5 to 20 to 30 folks, depending on who you're trying to target and things like that and the incidence rates, and uses quite a few different techniques, everything from focus groups to in-depth interviews, shop-alongs, ethnographies, things like that. And then you've also got on the other side of that coin, quantitative research, which seeks to quantify the data and typically applies some form of statistical analysis, whether that's stat testing across groups or more of an advanced analytics methodology like a conjoint or a max diff or a turf or things like that. And both of these methodologies have very similar steps within the research process. So you'll define the research problem, you will write the questionnaire or kind of a discussion guide in the case of qualitative research, and then you'll recruit the folks that you want to talk to, depending on the sample size, get the data, analyze the data, write the report, and then present the report to the client. Quantitative data, as I mentioned, typically is a bit more robust sample size, depending on the target, anywhere from 50 to several hundred, if not 1,000 folks. And there's able to put more statistical methodologies behind some of those results and kind of make it a little bit more quantifiable and gain a little bit more insights from that. So those are the two main type of methodologies that we work with quite a bit within the market research space. And then in addition to that, we also have what we call advanced analytics. You'll also probably hear this called marketing science in a lot of different industries and groups. But typically both client and supplier side firms have this advanced analytics or marketing science function. And basically these roles need knowledge of advanced statistical methodologies, cutting edge statistical methods, and then analytical software programs. So a lot of times these folks don't have as much interaction with the client, especially if they're on more the supplier side. Typically they're used as experts and brought in at the beginning phases to talk about the research goals, research objectives, and help determine if advanced analytics are required. And then they'll also, in the questionnaire development process, help write that portion of the questionnaire, do the actual analysis, potentially help write up and present that to the end client, as well as answer any questions and explain the methodologies to the client, whether internal or external. And typically these folks are going to need to have knowledge of not only cutting edge statistical analysis, but also software programs like SAS, SPSS, Sawtooth, and then oftentimes some coding or programming languages like Python or R quite often. So that's another area that people can go into within the market research or analytics space. Now we've got different types of employers that are typically seen within market research. And this is just a high level overview. We'll get into more detail in the coming slides, but most of the time what people think of within market research is the client side or like in-house folks, which are people working for your bigger name companies, right? Like Weber Grills, Coca-Cola, Facebook, Delta Airlines, things like that, and kind of supporting from the in-house portion. And then you've also got the research suppliers that are working at places like your Ipsos, your Nielsen's, your Kantars, things like that. But two groups that are often a little bit overlooked, for lack of a better word, are your recruitment services and then the software services. And we'll get into all of these in more detail in the coming slides. So looking at your client side folks, again, these are researchers that work in direct support of a brand and serve as research subject matter experts within their company. And so a lot of times these folks are going to be, like I mentioned, in the more name recognition companies. We can see a few here on the right-hand side of the screen, your Ally Bank, Eli Lilly, Delta, Coca-Cola, things like that. And typically in-house researchers are a little bit more project managers. They work with their internal folks, whether that's marketing people, brand managers, C-suite level folks, strategy folks. They work with them to figure out what the research question is. And then if it's a smaller ask, they oftentimes do it in-house using some kind of platform, whether that's Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey, hopefully not SurveyMonkey, but Qualtrics, things like that. If it's a smaller ask, and then if it's a much larger study or a larger ask, we'll bring in supplier folks, typically your Ipsos, your Nielsen, your Kantar, things like that. And then you've got, like I said, the suppliers and the consultancies. This is where I've spent most of my time since graduating from the MMR program, working, starting at Bellamy and then going to Ipsos and most recently Mark. And researchers in this side of market research typically work with those client companies directly to execute that research and help those companies answer business questions, everything from new product development, new product concept testing, to very large brand health tracking studies to see how well their brand is performing versus competitors. And typically these folks will manage the process start to finish. They'll do a lot of writing proposals, like they get research questions that come in the form of RFPs. We'll write the proposal. If we win the business, talk to the client, figure out what the research questions are, design the study, write the questionnaire, collect the data, analyze the data, write the report, and present it to the client with a whole lot of nuanced steps in between. So that's the supplier side or the consultancy side of market research. But then the folks that don't tend to get quite as much love, but they're very, very important in the market research space, is the vendor side. And vendors for marketing research range from kind of online panel companies to in-person recruiting to technology that help with the research. So online panel companies and the in-person recruiting are the folks that basically help either the in-house client side folks or the supplier side folks select and bring in the people that they're going to talk to for the research. And like I said, these folks are very important to the success of the project in terms of getting the right people for the study, so we can actually answer the business questions to the best of our abilities. And essentially, these folks tend to manage a lot of projects and work with a little bit more relationship building and relationship management. There tends to be a bit more sales roles in terms of managing these projects and keeping them going. So you have to be very detail oriented and things like that for these roles. So looking at these recruitment services, like I mentioned, they help these researchers find the customers they want to interview. And some of these you may have heard of, but most of these are probably not super well-known names outside of the market research industry. Places like Dynata, Research Results, Quest Mindshare, things like that. But fundamentally, they work really closely with researchers, either at the supplier side or in-house, to set the quotas for a questionnaire, whether that's by gender, age, demographic, region, things like that. And they work to ensure the best possible completes for the market research study. And then finally, for the employers, you've got your software services. These folks offer tools to help researchers execute projects, whether that's client-side folks doing stuff in-house or making a supplier-side researcher's life easier. Things like Qualtrics, which you've probably heard of and possibly have used in the past, but you've also got SurveyMonkey and Zappy, things like that, that help kind of automate the research process, especially if it's an ongoing study or something that folks do more often. These platforms help make our jobs quite a lot easier. So then now we've talked about some different types of employers, we're going to talk about getting into the market research industry should folks be interested. First thing is the specialized graduate degree programs. Obviously, I'm very biased towards that, considering I'm a graduate of one of those specialized programs from UGA. And most of these programs have very high placement rates, established alumni networks, networking opportunities, career fairs, things like that. And I can honestly say pretty much every job I've had since leaving the MMR program, I've gotten as the result of the alumni network of the UGA MMR. And it tends to be a bit easier way to get into the industry and skip a level or two. Instead of going into like a supplier firm as an analyst, a lot of times you're a senior analyst or a manager. So it's kind of an easy way to kind of get a head start within the market research industry. Talking about salaries, because I know in college, that's what I really cared about. Supplier side salaries tend to start lower, but there's a greater diversity in work and there's a lot more advancement opportunities to kind of climb that ladder within those supplier side firms. And then you've got the sales oriented or business development roles. Those tend to have a higher commission potential. they tend to be the highest paid within the market research industry. But in order to be super effective in that sales role, you also have to have a good knowledge of market research, but also have those soft skills in terms of presenting, communication, sales, things like that. So it's a great role for making money, but not necessarily for everybody within the market research space. And if there is interest in job postings, especially on the client side, include things like consumer insights in job postings. A lot of times you'll see, instead of like market researcher or something like that, it's consumer insights manager, consumer insights analyst, shopper insights, things like that. It's used interchangeably, but that's kind of what they tend to be called within the client side space. Internship opportunities tend to be more common on the supplier side, just because there's more research being done and just more opportunities for that opening. Typically, the in-house client side market research teams tend to be quite a bit smaller. So there's a bit less opportunity for advancement and less opportunities for internships and things like that to get into the industry. Final point I want to make is Quirks is an excellent resource for job and salary information within the market research industry. It's kind of a large trade publication. They do conferences, things like that. So it's a great thing to look at for any interest or questions for market research. Finally, like I mentioned, salary is super important. For entry-level roles, things like associate, analyst, senior analyst, things like that, compensation tends to be around 40 to 70,000, depending on obviously education level, experience, things like that. Location is also a big factor. And then once you get some more experience, the average experience client side or supplier side researcher, you can look at 140,000 plus. And that's kind of a total compensation between base salary, bonus structure, stock options, things like that. And then if you do the sales route or business development route, it can just go up from there in terms of commissions and stuff like that. So I think that's all we got. Yeah, so that's kind of a basic high-level overview of market research. Happy to take any questions y'all have. And I'm also going to share this report with y'all so you can take a look if there's interest as well. Marcus, anything to add?
No, I just would like to thank Scott. And, you know, it's hard to believe that it's been like 7 years since he graduated. And I do have great stories about Scott, which I will not share. But I appreciate that. What I will share is that Scott is another great MMR. Like many MMRs, stay really connected to the program and is always willing to give back to the program. And also an interesting fact is that when he was working at Weber, I was on the market for a grill, and Scott offered me his family and friends discount. So I got a deeply discount, awesome Weber grill. So thanks, Scott.
No worries. How's it working out for you, Marcus?
This is great, man. Great grill.
That's great right. Quality. Best on the market.
Yeah.
Any question for Scott? Okay, so Scott, can I share your email with the students if they have questions for you later?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, feel free to send any emails with questions, anything like that, whether it's market research related or just career advice, anything y'all have, happy to answer.
Great. Let's thank Scott, the speaker, again.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.
No worries. See you, Marcus. Have a good one.
See you.
Bye.
All right, guys. Can you see my screen?
We are seeing a screen, but probably not yours.
All right, so let me see. Stop share. Let me see now. How about now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, so as Scott and Dr. Wang mentioned, I'm the director of the MMR program. I'm a marketing professor as well in the marketing department. I don't teach undergrad, so I wouldn't have interacted with you. I only teach graduate students, MBAs and MMRs, and PhD students. So, but I'm here like really glad to talk to you about the MMR program as you saw, and I hope after Scott's presentation, You don't think of marketing research as just another course that you need to take to graduate, but more of like, oh, that's an interesting career path that I can follow. And if you decide to follow this path, the MMR program is the right choice to get into the industry, not only to get into the industry at a higher level, as Scott mentioned, but also have a much higher ceiling in terms of your progression to in this career. So a little bit about the MMR program. The MMR program was the first program in this nature to be founded in the United States, and is actually recognized as the gold standard of the industry throughout the entire world. So we are like considered the #1 program in the world when it comes to marketing research. And this is a quote from a research report, from an industry-wide research report that asks questions about graduate programs. And then the UGA MMR program was 3 times as frequently mentioned as all other programs combined. So this comes to show the level of awareness and interest that people have in the industry about our program and the quality of our program. And that's why you have no problem placing students, and our students achieve leadership roles. As I am going to show you here, we have grads back from the class of 99, Thomas Walker. He's a VP of Consumer Insights at eBay. Roberto, it is a Senior Director of Consumer Insights at Samsung Electronics of America. Or even younger, more recently grads, Mike Kesling is at Chick-fil-A. Erica Quinn, she is in charge of research for Disney Plus, which is a really exciting job. And even our students even go to consulting companies. That's where Eleanor, which is a recent grad of the class of 20, who's now at Bain & Company working research there. So I'm not going to spend too much time here. Scott already told you about like the client side and the supplier side of the industry. And here's some of the companies where our students work. And also, it's important to point out that we have a great placement rate, and also on average, our students receive 2 offers most of the time before graduation. So in terms of variety of employment opportunities, not only like in industries, but also geographically. Our recruiters from all over the country and even internationally come to recruit from the program. So if your dream is to work on the West Coast or work in New York City or Chicago, where Scott is located now, you will have this opportunity here because we get employers recruiting from all over the country. And here's like a word cloud of some of our top recruiters. So I know many of you are probably very passionate about Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has probably like 10 MMRs that they have recruited. So in terms of the career, it's one of the fastest growing careers in terms of business jobs. So as the US News and World Report ranks a marketing research analyst as #9 on their list of best business jobs. And the US Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts a 22% employment increase for marketing research between 20 and 2030, compared to an overall rate of 7% for all other occupations. So great potential for growth as well, and jobs in the future. So we have a long-standing 100% placement. Whether you have prior experience or not, we are able to place you in jobs, and a lot of times receiving multiple offers. And the starting salaries of students graduating from the program, it's higher than the range that Scott was talking about, the range in the industry. But if you have an UGA MMR, your start salary will range from $65,000 to $90,000, with jobs on the supplier side more on the $65,000 to $75,000 base salary, and jobs in the client side more in the $80,000 to $90,000. That's just base salaries. On top of that, you should expect some performance bonuses and other sort of bonuses. And that's a great return on investment for an 11-month program, right? So you finish your undergrad, your choice might be to not such a great job, not such a great salary, or do another 11 months and position yourself for a great job and a great career. So, we're looking for people that are really interested rather than just statistics. So it's an important part, but we're really interested in people that want to learn about consumer behavior, about human behavior, right? So how can we help companies to make better decisions by better understanding the consumer? So 3 years out after graduation, income ranges between $90,000 and $125,000. So it's not just work and money. We have a lot of fun. Students create friendships for life. Here, MMR students tailgating, going apple picking, and here's like myself and some of the students playing tennis. We do that often. So in terms of financial support for people in the program, we can offer out-of-state tuition waivers, graduate assistantships, which include a tuition waiver and a stipend in exchange of you working about 13 hours a week for the program. We also have a diversity scholarship funded by the Eli Lilly and Company that pays $5,500. We have 2 of those scholarships. And if you are out of state at UGA and you're not a Georgia resident, but you're a resident of one of these states, you can apply for in-state tuition as a result of the academic common market. So in terms of applying to the MMR program, a standard graduate school application, our deadline, because it's starting the summer, is a little earlier than some of the programs that start in the fall. Our deadline is February 15, but it's basically a deadline to start your application. And here the requirement, and I think one thing that we have new this year is that we have the ability to provide waivers for GMAT and GRE based on your academic performance and your experience. And in terms of academic performance, if you're a UGA student with a 3.7 GPA or above, that will usually qualify for a GMAT or GRE waiver. So here's how to follow us on social media. And we're going to be sharing that information with Dr. Wang. And also, if you want to reach out to us, email us at terrymmr@uga.edu. And we can also schedule, if you're interested in coming and sit into like a speaker and go into a social with the students and the speaker, we'll be glad to host you. So if you have any questions after this presentation, please reach out and I'll be glad to answer them. Thank you, Pangman.